Well, here we are in this video. I'm going to be planting 3 no-till plots. This one right here is about 1/8 of an acre. The next one after this is about close to a 1/2 acre. And the last one I might not get much footage of. It's just a tiny little, maybe 1/15 of an acre, just a tiny little 30 by 30 spot. Anyways, you can see all this standing rye behind me. This is all going to be broadcasted into soybeans. I'm just going to broadcast them by hand, and then I'm going to crush all of the rye down and we'll spray it. And we're basically going to do the same process on all 3 of these plots. This one, like I said, will be soybeans. The next one will be half soybeans and half buckwheat, and the last one will be buckwheat too. This is the first year trying out the buckwheat method. Well, you know, eventually sometime this summer put the brassicas into the buckwheat, so I guess we'll call this the Jeff Sturgis method. That's where, you know, everyone's heard about this. So this is my first time ever trying buckwheat. I'm sure it's going to grow good. I just don't really know exact seeding rate, so I'm just going to put it down thick. I want to get, you know, the buckwheat coming in good to suppress the weeds, and then do the same method with the brassicas. Broadcast the brassicas and crush all the buckwheat down probably in late July, early August. So you can see this rye here is pretty tall. This is probably the shortest spot of it because it's up on the hill here. Yeah, so I'll get broadcasting. I'm not going to put any fertilizer down on this area, so we'll just see how that goes. I know in the past the beans have been kind of weak, but last year I didn't put much fertilizer down. Last year I tilled it up. In the future I just want to no-till this spot either into brassicas or beans, you know, every other year or whatever. So yeah, we'll see how this works out. Well, this is the next spot. This is the food plot that's probably pretty close to a 1/2 acre. It wraps around the trees back there. All that yellow stuff is actually all brassicas that are coming back. That's what I've seemed to notice when the deer don't, you know, completely eat the brassicas down to the ground. They leave the bulbs or they leave the stem a little bit high. They will regrow in the spring, and you can actually use them as a cover crop like this. You can see there's a little bit of rye in here. I did broadcast some rye in here, but I put rye pretty heavy along the edge because we had a corn wall here and no brassicas. That's why you just see rye there. And then that was all beans back there last year, and that's, you know, what it's going to be this year too. And again, I'm going to have brassicas up here in the front in the full sun. But yeah, just bare soil underneath all this stuff. This rye is already starting to dry up a little bit, and once you crush this down, just a little bit of, you know, spraying, and then your stuff's going to start growing. So yeah, I'm going to get broadcasting here. This is all going to be buckwheat in the front here because I'm going to do brassicas, you know, sometime this summer, and I'll put the beans back there again. So Well, got it all crushed down. This is one of my favorite things to do all food plot season long, is crush the rye down. It's just so satisfying. It's amazing how good of a job just a normal garden drag, or whatever you want to call that, a harrow, just a normal drag really does a really nice job, just simply because the winter wheat is so stalky at this stage. When it gets this tall, it crushes down really good. You got to go over it a couple times, as you saw in the time lapse, but you know, it does a really good job. And you pull this stuff back and you can see all the soybeans just tucked right underneath this nice green carpet of rye. It literally looks like a carpet. Yeah, this is a pretty steep hill. You can't really see in the video, but it was always a hassle to get the tractor and disc up here. And this is pretty dry soil, not that rocky, but it's just, you know, doing the no-till system here. You know, I could have put buckwheat in here and then, you know, crushed the buckwheat down and did brassicas, but this year I'm just doing soybeans again up here, and maybe next year it'll be brassicas. But just doing the no-till system in general up here is just really going to help this soil out, I feel like, because in the past, you know, some of the stuff dried out pretty quick. The beans didn't really do the best, especially up there where the four-wheeler is. That's the driest area because it's the highest area. So yeah, on to plot number 2 now. Here we are, just finished up. As you can tell, this is a really weird food plot. It wraps around all these trees. It's not that big either. Last year I had this into beans and it actually survived, and a lot of it was waist high, which is surprising for such a small spot. But there's just so many ag fields around that the deer can browse on, other than this spot. But yeah, see it. It's all crushed down really good right here. Out there it was a little bit rough. Some of the areas didn't crush down the best. But yeah, it looks totally different. You can see all my trees right there. Before you couldn't, because it was, you know, almost 5 to 6 feet tall of stuff. It goes all the way down kind of by that big willow bush right down there, about a ½ acre. This will all be brassicas up here. It's going to be buckwheat for the summer, and then I'll crush it and do a no-till planting of brassicas sometime this summer. So we're back at the buckwheat plot. This will be brassicas in about a month. But man, you know, it's been so dry. This stuff just germinated after this recent, you know, past week or so of rains. You can see down here, see how much bigger the buckwheat is? It's because this stuff, for some reason, the ground's a little lower here, so it must have had a little bit more moisture. And down here, this is where it germinated, like right away. Look at how big that stuff is. I mean, if we would have had timely rains, the whole plot would have been like this. But that stuff will probably be close to waist high, maybe even, you know, chest high when I want to seed my brassicas in, and probably like late July, early or mid-August. This stuff will probably only be about waist high when I'm seeding my brassicas in, but still enough, you know, material to cover up the seeds. You can see all the old, these are all old brassicas from last year that came back to life and went to seed. And then here's the winter rye right here. So you can see it's coming in nice and thick. I want it thicker the better, because it's just going to smother out as many weeds as possible. But yeah, I'll take you over here and show you the beans. Well, here we are. This is the no-till bean plot here. Doesn't look the greatest. You know, it's been super dry, so having these seeds literally sit right on top of the soil like this, a lot of them didn't germinate until maybe like a week ago. You can see how young all these plants are. And these have been up for a while. So like this is one that, you know, you can see a few bigger ones. We probably only had about 25% germination, you know, right away. You can see right here it's kind of shady. These are all bigger because, you know, they were shaded from the 90-degree, you know, baking sun without any rain. And up here, it's a little bit more open. Look at, there's just nothing except all the little ones that just sprouted. See them all coming up here? Plus the deer have been nipping them off pretty hard too. This is a really tiny, maybe not even probably like a 1/10 of an acre. Just a really tiny little bean spot. Just as a good little attractant right when they first come out, you know, right over here somewhere. All the bedding's right in there. So these ones way back in here in this shady spot too sprouted pretty early too, but you can see, look at that. That's going to be really hard for that to recover. I put them in here super thick knowing that they were going to get browsed, but it still doesn't look like they're thick enough. We'll see what this plot looks like in a month from now. That'll probably be the next update if I even use this footage. I mean, if it fails, I'm gonna have to come in here and spray. As you can tell, a lot of weeds are coming in. So when I spray, if it looks really weak, I might just broadcast a few brassicas in here just to try and save this little plot. You can see the deer are walking in right here quite a bit, in and out of the plot. This little crushed down trail through the weeds. So, yeah. I'll take you up to the other spot, the drier one up on the hill. That one I haven't seen yet. I'm assuming they're probably all really small like that because none of them germinated right away because that's full sun and a lot drier ground than this. So up here on the hill here, yeah, it looks pretty pathetic. I planted this literally probably close to a month ago by now, and this is what I'm left with. Pretty sad. Right here's a spot where they came up a little faster for some reason. You know, it's just, it was so dry. It was just, you can see the beans are still down in here. So it's not like they were all nipped off by deer. I mean, a lot of them are just starting to come up. Look at that. A month of growth. And we've only had about a week and a half of wetter conditions, so stuff is just starting to come up. This is what it should have looked like a week to a week and a half after planting. Yeah. I mean, on a normal year, this is what you'd be left with after about a week and a half of growth, and by now everything should be at least like shin high, you know, a month after planting. You can see it looks like they're gonna come up, but they're just gonna be pretty far behind. Yeah, right here, look at that. Look at all those seeds. That one's actually starting to mold because it's been sitting down so long. I mean, look at, a lot of these are actually molding. Look at that. I've never had this bad a, you know, germination on these no-till plots, probably just because it's been so dry, but to see them mold like that is kind of concerning. Like that one is not going to do anything. That one looks like it's starting to swell up, and yeah, it's got a root down, kind of. Yeah, well, it doesn't work out when I'm up here spraying sometime this summer. I'll just seed in some brassicas. There's hardly any weeds coming back, so I probably won't have to spray this for a while. This mulch mat is suppressing a lot of growth. So, yeah, kind of depressing, but we'll see what it looks like in a month from now. Well, up here on the hill, on this no-till plot, it really didn't work out as good as I was hoping to this year. The drought in June, in early June, right after planting this, is what really screwed up the plot from day one. A lot of this stuff didn't really germinate until about 3 weeks after planting, so it didn't germinate until about late June. Almost, I mean, around July 4th, the stuff was just starting to poke through, so it's pretty much, I wouldn't say a failure. I mean, the deer are really browsing it hard. There must be like a doe with a fawn, a few deer bedding up here. They're really using this plot good, but in terms of like winter food or fall food, it's not going to be much of anything. I thought I broadcasted some brassicas in here like 3 weeks ago, but I don't see any. So I'm probably going to come back in today and broadcast a few more and see what it does. Yeah, it's not looking good. All the rye really protecting this soil good, but these soybeans have had a really good, really hard time getting started. There's pretty heavy browse. This is probably the soybeans that we have on the property with the most browse, and they're probably the smallest beans, so You can see way up there on top of the hill, all the leaves just completely gone on those plants. Even on these ones here, a lot of them gone. So yeah, plus they look pretty thin too, considering how much I broadcasted. I don't think a lot of them really even germinated because they probably either molded or just sat out in the ground too long. Sometimes when they sit out for a week or a couple weeks like that, you just don't get as good a germination. Like, look at how far apart these beans are. I knew I was throwing them in thicker than that. It should be at least that thick throughout the whole plot. I know 2 years ago, or was that was last year, I had hand drilled beans up here. I worked it all up with a disc, drilled it all in, and they were about waist high. And this little tiny 1/8 of an acre of beans was gone pretty much early December. So these will be gone if they even produce anything, like pretty much immediately. So I should really probably just come up here and rip it all up with a disc and replant brassicas or something, but I don't know. I think I'm definitely going to broadcast more rye into this September, and just try this as brassicas next year, a no-till brassica plot. I'll put the buckwheat when I smash the rye down, and then when I smash the buckwheat down, I'll put the brassicas down next year. But yeah, I'll probably just try and come back today and put a few more brassicas in here, and then if that doesn't work out, I can just layer the whole thing with rye, and at least we'll have something green up here, and then next spring I can make this buckwheat. So that's the plan. And if that doesn't work out for brassicas either next year, it obviously didn't work out that good for soybeans. It would have been better if we would have had more rain, but yeah. I'll take you down to the next plot. I'll show you what that looks like. Alright, so back at the second plot here, this is the one that wraps around kind of these trees and partially to a lot of shade, kind of.